just to clarify now what we were working on a theory of blues and blues in combination to yellow. And this is really the crux of your watercolor palette. Um, a lot of times students or artists will buy a lot of greens and then you have difficulty mixing with the greens. But I thought for this particular project and what we were working on, we worked with all mixes that were cerulean, cobalt, French ultramarine blue, Prussian, and all the varietal green, blue-based greens that we can mix. And here I mixed cerulean with cad yellow light, and it makes a clean green, which is a little bit granulated. Cobalt with cad yellow light makes a murky green because the cobalt does kind of a different thing. It has a different quality and makes a less bright green. The French ultramarine blue with cad yellow light or cad yellow medium makes a granulated green, and that's because the French ultra blue has bits in it and the cad yellow is an opaque color, and that makes it granulating. So you can get all different kinds of looks. The Prussian blue is the cleanest and brightest green. So that's the one that is great, but you have to be careful how you use it because it can look too bright. And then the one that is the brightest of all is the Prussian blue with the new gamboge. And these are all the blue based. Okay. So we're going to move, let's move this over here a second. Get my light right here and move this up a second. Okay. This is the theory that I want to talk to you about. And this is why I encourage everyone, myself, artists, anyone who's ever studied with me, to look at their palette and see how many greens you have in your palette. And actually, in my palette, I have one green. I have Viridian, and I have at times moved back and forth between Windsor green or phthalo green and Viridian. But one green, this is Viridian, this is phthalo. One green is all you need on your palette. And I'll tell you why. It's going to save you a lot of money. You won't have to buy an enormous amount of greens. I'm going to show you a theory that is not like this. It's not blue and yellow makes green, but that all the warm colors on your palette plus your existing green paint can make a wonderful green. So if you'd like to take a screenshot of this, I will illuminate this just a little bit more. And you can take a screenshot. I won't be posting this. I'm working on a book actually with some of these writings, and you can take a screenshot right now if you like, and then we can go and do a little bit of color mixing, and I'll show you how this theory works. Okay? Everybody all set? Okay. Okay. All right. Bring this. I'm gonna bring this here. We've got a nice big mixing area. Okay. Let me get the light adjusted here just a second for you. Let me see if I can get this light up. Okay. All right. So here's our theory. And I don't use the green very often. We're going to spritz this one here. This is my Viridian green. Now, Viridian green was the color of John Singer Sargent. This is the only green he had in his palette. So we're going to take a look at that. And that green is a beautiful green. It's a really bright green, and it's a color of a lot of green plastic things. I mean, if we paint with it, it could be toys, it could be all kinds of different things. Phthalo green is also another green. I'm going to be working with Viridian today for you guys. But what I want to show you is that you can make sap green and perylene green and olive green and all those other colors by simply using the warm colors in your palette. And I've got my palette divided up here into two areas. I've got my cools over here. I've got really my reds and yellows over here, and my earth colors are up on the side. My green, I always say, I think this is an American expression in the North 40 because it refers to 40 acres of land, but I always keep my green on the edge of my palette because I don't want to contaminate the rest of the colors with this green. Over the years, I've dropped Viridian and Phthalo on my shoes, and I've made huge stains that never came out. So let me show you this theory that we've got here. The theory is that any color that you have that is warm, and I'm going to clean up some of these here, you start with that first and then add the green. So the question is, how do you make a green look green? You start with any warm color, and we're going to put a yellow down here, and I'm going to paint something in a second. We're not just going to be doing color mixing. Nice wet yellow here. And then I'm going to tip into my green and put that green into my yellow. Now, why am I working that way? You never want to start You never want to start with green and then see how much yellow you're going to add, because then you're going to start adding a whole lot of color. So that one was, let's make sure we got that one clean. That's my cad yellow. Okay. We're going to do a little painting down here too. Now I'm going to do with a new gamboge. We're going to put a little bit of new gamboge there. And we're going to make that little square of new gamboge. And now we're going to tip into our Viridian, which is my one standard green. Now I've got a really nice color. Got some bubbles in it too. Going along the palette, we're going to go with an orange, and this is a cad orange that I have. You can use pyrrole orange, bright orange. They're different manufacturers. So we're going to take this and go down here with a little patch of orange. And then we tip into our green. Now this is an odd one. This is where you start, this is where you can make olive green. So students will say, or artists will say, oh, well, it looks orangey. You need enough green in there so it goes green. And that really makes an interesting olive green. Put a little more green in that, make it look greener. The next one we're going to do is a red. So in this case, we've got a cad red. I've got a cad red medium. And I'm going to put my little red area there. Back into my Viridian. Make sure Viridian is nice and soupy. Now this of course, is the shadow color of red. And that goes brownish at first. And then if you add more green, it becomes green, but a murky, murky, dark green. Now, any of this theory we could have used in our painting, but then that would mean that we have all these varietal colors that are coming in. So what I wanted to do was stick with our blues in our painting itself and make sure that you know how to use those and then how to use this particular kind of green. Okay, last one we're going to do, because I have both carmine and alizarin crimson, is we're going to use our cool red. And we are going to make a little square of that. This is a great exercise to find out how many greens you can actually have on your palette. And then we're going to go back into our Viridian or Phthalo, whichever one you have, or Windsor green. And then we're going to mix that green back into that area. And that makes a super dark here. So we now, let me pick these up for you. We have the Viridian. We have a light green. Let's see if we can get any of these to come down a little bit to show a little bit of the variance in these. There we go. Now you can see them a little bit more easily because they have a little bit of water in them. We need this one to go greener. There we go. It goes purple first and then it goes green. And this is actually a wonderful color. So each of these has a different quality. And if this is the theory of using all the warm colors on your palette. Now there's one more that you can do that's really good. And it's similar to what we were using. And we're using the burnt sienna. So we're going to go with burnt sienna here. This is our last warm color that's on our palette. And then we're going to go back into our Viridian again. And this makes a wonderful, I guess you would call the color hunter green or deep green. Wonderful, lush, shadowy green. And there's your last color. Now, it might not show up quite as much on video, but all these colors, the variances you have here and the way the color starts to then dry into your paper is much more beautiful than if you buy a sap green. And let me just show you that I have two colors here. Actually, I'll just show the sap green because there's one last thing I wanted to show you, and some of you already do have sap green. I bought this as a what's called a convenience color, meaning that in buying this, I don't have to mix anything. But what I found is that it actually is less effective than making your sappy color greens. Here's our sap green. And it actually is fairly flat. Let me bring it down here with a little bit of water. I'm not on an incline here now, painting fairly flat. But you can see that it comes down, and it really is a fairly, it doesn't have any energy to it like these have. But one of the things that you can do, and this is something that I was studying, is a color of green that is really good if you are absolutely sure that you want to keep using your sap green, is mix it with sepia or sepia, either one you want to say. And that particular color with sap green makes a wonderful green. Now, the theory that I just talked to you about, if you're a watercolorist and only do watercolor, great. If you're an oil painter and you actually are considering this particular kind of green mixing idea, absolutely the same theory applies. The only thing that would be different is if you want to lighten your color, you would add a little white or you would add a little more yellow or light color before you add your white. So let's take a look at this mix. So we're going to take a little bit of the sepia, and I'm not going to put this out on my palette because it's not a palette color of mine. It's been a while since I used this. There it comes back up. And sepia is one of these real dark darks. It's not a color of John Singer Sargent. It was a color of Winslow Homer. The thing I want to remind you about greens, just as we're talking, is that historically, greens really started out as browns in painting, and it was John Constable, who was born in 1776, who hung a violin in a tree and showed painters that what they were mixing in their paintings up to that point, up until the late 18th century, early 19th century, was actually a brown. So this particular color, if you mix those two colors together, you get a most fantastic olive green. So this would be the one that would be, I would say, the outlier to this theory that I just showed you. But this is another way that you can use your colors and your green mixes on your palette. Just making sure that you have all your colors kind of coordinated within each of your paintings. Let's do just a little mix here let's take something here and we'll mix a little bit of, we'll put a little bit of yellow down. Just do a little tree, and we'll put a little bit of gamboge over here. Let's try something kind of fun. And we'll put a little bit of orange over here. And a little little bit of carmine over here. And now we're going to take our viridian. And our viridian is going to go into here. Going to go a little murkier as it goes into the gamboge. It's going to go even murkier as it goes into my orange. And it's going to go even murkier as it goes into the red. There's my little tree. And that gives you an idea of what you can do with some of the colors. We can bring a little bit more yellow on this side, as if the light were coming in on this side. And then maybe adding a little bit of blue to this side of the tree. And this would be the shadow shape of the tree down here. Maybe we've got some birds flying up here. Always have to entertain myself a little bit with my, there we go. But that gives you the idea of how you can start with any warm color. And I'll put that down just real quickly. So the theory is, let's put this up here. Warm colors, any warm colors plus green. Okay? And that gives you an idea of how you can use everything on your palette and just stick with that one color that's a viridian. And you can get this varietal sort of look to all your colors. Let's go in and take a look at that real quickly. We'll just go in. Actually, we'll go in. I had success with coming in before. We'll come in real quickly. You can take a look. You can see what we've got here. See our color kind of changing and merging, and you can see our colors much more easily. Going to the greens. And then down here, a little bit harder to see, I think, in this light, but this is the one we want to keep in mind. We'll go out a second. We'll keep in mind that this was the one that was sepia plus sap. And this makes another wonderful color that I think you'll like. So this is cad yellow. This is new gamboge. This is orange. This is cad red. And this is carmine. And our little outlier here is burnt sienna. Okay, I hope that helps you with your greens. It's one of the things I love the best about painting is trying out these different colors. Make sure that you, with your palette, you know what's in your palette and either use one theory or the other. The theory of mixing blues with your yellows or starting with any of your warmest colors in your palette and then mixing green into it. So each way is correct. Each way is your own preference. Just have some fun.